what I mean by that, they think that it takes more money than it does. You know, what I've understood and what I've done is, if you can find a good deal, money will come to the deal.
Okay, Sean, real estate investor mindset. Tell us more about this.
Yeah, so to transition to a real estate investor mindset from a real estate agent mindset is you have to look at the opportunities from the standpoint of how can this actually make money and how can this make sense as a property where you can get a return on an investment. And so I think that most agents, we have been taught to just look at it from a standpoint of how it could benefit our clients. And so there's just a little bit of mind shift to figure out how could this benefit me if I wanted to look at this property for an investment. And so once you start looking for opportunities, they'll just show up. And so looking at it from an investment standpoint, whether it's potential for appreciation, maybe it's a buy and hold because you're looking at it that it'll appreciate over time, or you're looking at it that it may provide monthly cash flow, or you're looking at it that the area is changing and you can see that there'll be an opportunity for you to maybe do a flip or something like that. So just having that different outlook on the property as opposed to just looking at it from a standpoint of helping someone else just to purchase the property.
That makes sense. When you're looking for the opportunities, they'll start to appear. Like when did you start doing that? Or when was the first kind of time where something clicked on that end?
So the first time that I realized and started to really look at it from an investor standpoint, I was actually working with an investor from California. And so the interesting thing about it was I was doing a ton of short sales. This guy actually found me online, all the way from Sacramento, California. He found me online. He said, I see you're doing short sales. I see this property. I want to know more about it. Is it a good deal? So I did my research and found out indeed it was a good deal. And I helped him to purchase that property. And then he purchased another one and another one and another one. And maybe about 5 properties into that process, I'm like, wow, if it's good for him, it's probably good for me. And just learning some of the things that he looked at from an investment standpoint, I took that same mentality and looked at it and said, well, he might have more money than me, but I have more knowledge about this market than he does. And so I said, hey, I just need to get one property at a time. I don't need to buy several properties at a time. And so I really just started looking for opportunities. And one thing that I learned from that is I started to buy properties based upon the monthly cash flow, because that's predictable, right? I know that most people like doing flip properties, but I feel like that's speculative. Like, you don't always know exactly what you're gonna make. You don't know what the market is gonna do, but you can pretty much predict how much you'll get in monthly rents if you place a tenant in that property. And so I buy the property based upon that, and then the appreciation is just icing on the cake. And so that's really my secret sauce. I actually learned that from him. He's pretty much became my mentor, and he's done really well with that, and so have I. So I think that sometimes we start chasing squirrels and we want to flip a property and all that good stuff, which is, I do that too. But I'm just saying, if you're going to last in this real estate investing game, you have to be in it for the long haul, and you have to look at it strategically from the standpoint of how much cash flow can this property make on a regular basis. And so that's pretty much what happened. Like I said, I was working with him and for him and identifying opportunities. And then once I start to understand it more and understand that, hey, if he's going to be spending his money in some of these properties he bought sight unseen, and yet people doing it nowadays, but this was back in like 2009, so over 10 years ago, he was doing that, and I'm like, wow, he's buying these properties sight unseen. He's never stepped a foot here in Charlotte. And so I said, hey, if it works for him, it definitely can work for me. And so I just really started being aware of other opportunities shortly after that, and just acquiring properties as I went along.
That's good. For people, like, what's because I'm sure there's realtors out there who they have the cash, they have the knowledge, but they're just like haven't taken the plunge maybe to invest. Like, what's going on there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll tell you one thing that I've seen with a lot of agents is this. There's several things, but one thing in particular, they're talking to the wrong people, right? A lot of them are talking to people that have never owned an investment property. It's a funny thing, you would think that, hey, we're working with all these clients that we would have access to that, but some of us, some agents don't have access to investor type clients. And so I believe that a lot of agents are talking to the wrong people. What I mean by that is they'll say, hey, I'm thinking about getting into, rental properties and real estate investing. And they'll say it to a friend or somebody that they know. And that friend that's never owned an investment property, that, is the Google lawyer that knows everything from Google and social media, they say, oh, you don't want to own any rental properties because, you're not going to do anything but have headaches from tenants and changing toilets and getting calls in the middle of the night. That's the furthest thing from the truth. Once I talked to people that were actually doing this thing in real estate and I got the real from them, I'll tell you, one of the most important things you could do is do the correct repairs on the property. Therefore, you don't have to worry about calls. Yes. And screen your tenants heavily. Like, that cuts out about 95% of the issues you'll have. And so I believe agents are getting the wrong information. And then secondly, I believe that a lot of agents don't know the next step to take to start investing. And what I mean by that, they think that it takes more money than it does. What I've understood and what I've done is, if you can find a good deal, money will come to the deal. Like I'm dating myself now, right? There was this guy that late night infomercials used to come on called Carlton Sheets. And if you're over 40 years old, you've seen them. They come on at 12. I used to come in, or wake up, the TV is on. I wake up in the middle of the night, TV's still on. I'd see the ad, Carlton Sheets, and he used to sell this course. Said it was back then. It was VHS, so that was a long time ago, and DVDs. And he said you can buy real estate with little to no money down. I'm like, that is not true. And then I finally bought the course and I studied it, and I found out that it was true. And so what I've learned over the years is if you find the right deal, people will loan you the money because it's less skin in the game for them. It's a less risky investment. And so smart people are looking for ways to invest their money. So I think that's the biggest thing, that a lot of individuals, agents especially, they believe that it takes more money than what it really does.
Yeah, no, it's like there's like a mindset shift.
Yeah, the mindset is everything. That's one thing I've learned over time, that whatever you believe, that's what's going to happen. If you believe bad things are going to happen, they are. If you believe good things are going to happen, they are. And so the mind shift and the mindset is totally, that's important. That's the biggest difference right there. Just understanding that, hey, what I learned from somebody else, or what I was taught, coming up, or what I learned, about real estate per se, is not a fact, right? You gotta have an open mind and know that anything that you want to do starts in your mind. If you say that you can't do it, you won't do it. If you say that you can't do it, you can't do it. If you say that you can, you will do it. And if you will do it, things will start happening. Won't always happen exactly the way you want it, but you'll start seeing little wins and little successes. And so once you do that, you get more confidence. So mindset and the mind shift to believe that you can be successful and believe that you can do this real estate investing is probably one of the biggest parts of this process.
Yeah, absolutely. So even you know, the mistakes that you make help in the whole process of
absolutely.
like your mindset shifting of like, oh, like, no, the mistakes are part of the growth. Could you kind of like dive into that a little more?
Yeah, so that's wow. So the mistakes, I always learn something from the mistakes. And so one of my first deals I did was the craziest thing. You wouldn't believe it. The actual transaction was a great opportunity. A wholesaler bought it to me. Everything was moving along smoothly. And what ended up happening is the craziest thing. This is like something you wouldn't even believe. But we went through the transaction. So I had a house. I turned around and I bought the house from them, and I had a buyer. I renovated and I had a buyer for the house, right? Mm-hmm. So that was sweet. I was going to make a nice profit on it.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, as we're moving through the process, I sell the house to the buyer, and my closing proceeds get held up. I don't get my money. And so I'm like, well, what's going on? Well, the craziest thing happened. The actual closing attorney that I hired stole the money.
Wait, what?
He stole all of the money. He was stealing money apparently for years.
What the heck?
He stole the money, and so he didn't pay off the previous loan that I had. You know, I had a loan against it to get it, but I still had a nice profit margin in there. He didn't pay the house off, so the house still had an outstanding lien. And come to find out, he wasn't paying anybody's money. He was basically taking money from a new closing to pay for the next closing, but it caught up with him.
Right.
And that house almost went to foreclosure on me. I had to go through my title insurance company to try to make a claim. It was just a disaster. And so one thing I learned from that was know who you're working with, know your partners, get some references. Like, I didn't know this guy. I didn't get any references. And so I learned that from that experience. I also learned the importance of title insurance, because the title insurance finally did come through. So, exactly. So you always learn, I believe, from your major mistakes. And so that's what happened with that. And it was crazy. But when I was going through it, I was like, this doesn't even seem real. I'm like, this is like something from a book, you know. And so, but yeah, I learned a lot from that. And that was like one of my first deals. And so I'm learning something different every day. Like, I'm even learning with my different contractors, I have to deal with them in a different way. My different contractors, they communicate differently. And so I understood to deal with them in a different aspect, you know, relative to how I might deal with another contractor. And I think that we as real estate agents, we do that already, right? We deal with different clients in different ways. And so it's really just a natural progression. It takes a little bit more detail and understanding, though. And once you do have that detail and understanding, you can recognize, you know, the things that you need to change when you're dealing with potential contractors, potential people, potential situations.
Okay, yeah, we have to finish that story though. What ended up happening? So you had to go through title insurance, and then like how did that process work?
Yeah, so I had to go through the title insurance, and first of all, the attorney actually got locked up.
Oh my gosh.
He got locked up. And you know what? The craziest thing is, I'm the one responsible for uncovering all of this. You know, I didn't know that he was stealing money from other people. All I knew was I couldn't get my money for my transaction. And so I'm like, what the heck is going on? So I was pressing this paralegal, and I was pressing her so hard that she finally broke down. She's like, hey, it's something going on. They're investigating us. I don't know what's going on. You know, I'll just call him John. I won't put his whole name out there. Yeah, John, you know, it had some discrepancies in his account, and so I don't know what's really going on here. And so we exposed it, and come to find out, he had been doing it for years. I mean, it impacted, you know, hundreds of other people's transaction.
Yeah.
The problem was he was actually taking money from previous transactions and paying off other ones. So it basically like a Ponzi scheme. He finally ran out, and it caught up with him. Yeah. So he got locked up, and so the title insurance ended up seeing my claim and making me whole. They took care of everything. I was able to get my money, but it took a long time. You know, people say these things like, so regular homeowners insurance and all those things, that's pretty simple and straightforward, right? But people don't understand the process you have to go through when you have title insurance. That whole process took me about 1 year. Wow. You know, so that money that was there, I mean, that profit that I was going to make, it was just like, I was happy to get it, but it wasn't the same profit because it took over a year to get it.
Yeah. It's like, we'll pay you back later. And you're like, all right. Which also goes, I think, with like some of the disciplines you have to have as you go up in the ranks in real estate.
That's right.
Because if you were super pressed for money, that would have been a very big issue.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely having the discipline, definitely having the mindset. You know, I always believe that at the end I'm going to win. You know, and so that's super important. Just having that mindset that no matter what happens, that you're going to win. You're going to either learn something or you're going to succeed. And once you have that mindset, it's never a failure.
Yes. You nailed it. That's so good. Thank you so much, Sean, for sharing that info.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate you. If you guys like this information, definitely share, subscribe, click the button, and let us know what you think about it.
That's right. Cool.